Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee with Inside the Firm. Each week, our hosts will be interviewing local, regional, and national business leaders to give you an inside peek into how they lead their business to success in the ever-competitive business climate.
Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee with Inside the Firm. Today, I have a very special guest. His name is Michael G. Tingus, and he is the president and managing principal of Lee & Associates, LA North Ventura since 2004, and is also one of LA's top commercial brokers, presiding over the growth of the company from a single office in Sherman Oaks in 2004 to include 3 additional offices in Calabasas, Ventura County, and Antelope Valley, with sales and leasing revenues in excess of $650 million annually. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lance. Appreciate you hosting us this morning.
Yeah, I'm really glad to have you on. This is so timely because I've been hearing a lot from different people, and I'm very interested in our audience is in real estate. There's developers who listen to this podcast, builders, a lot of architects, and we're all wondering where the commercial sector is heading. We all kind of are feeling the residential sector just be on fire. It's amazing. But before we get into that topic, why don't we kick things off by tell us a little bit more about your background from way back. You know, what got you into real estate in the first place?
Sure, definitely. I ended up down in Southern California, kind of by accident, not really, but I was a young little kid growing up in Northern California in Davis, and played a lot of junior golf. And ultimately, I think in 1983, I was ranked 4th in the country, and ended up being recruited by a bunch of schools. And USC is where I landed. Ironically, out in the Conejo Valley at North Ranch Country Club in Westlake Village was kind of our home course. And so on the weekends, I used to go out there, and I met some people while I was in school at USC, a lot of people in the mid 80s to late 80s that were getting into real estate. And so as I ended up my golf career at USC, one of our good golf team supporters, a gentleman by the name of Max Green. Max Green was with a company called the Sealy Company, which was founded in 1906, big industrial real estate firm. And fortunately, in 1988, after I graduated, I started for the Sealy Company out here in the San Fernando Valley, where I basically started really the West San Fernando Valley, 405 freeway, kind of west, working primarily in industrial. And that was back in really 88, 89, when I started my career. And quickly thereafter ended up in the 1991 to 94 recession. So it was quite an interesting start to the career. But that's kind of where I started. And then I spent about 10 years with Sealy Company, that then became Colliers. I left the company and went to work for a client of mine, actually, that I pulled out of the garage in 1993. We took a company called Capstone Turbine Company public. I worked there for a period of about 3 years, selling distributed power generation during the power crisis back when Gray Davis was in office. Loved real estate. After that experience, I then got back into real estate, and that's how I ended up over in Lee & Associates in 2004. And Lee & Associates, great historical company, founded by Bill Lee. It's a broker-owned company. We're the largest broker-owned company in the country. And we have a lot of ability to kind of do what we want to do. All of our offices are independently owned and operated. So obviously the San Fernando Valley, my offices, which is now, we started in Sherman Oaks. We had about 8 brokers in Sherman Oaks when I started. And we had mostly office brokers. And historically, Lee & Associates have been an industrial company. And so the way I had to look at building the company was to bring in a really good solid staff that really, so we had all the bells and whistles that our other big competitors had, the CBREs, Cushman & Wakefield's, et cetera. And it's just different. Each market is different. If you look at our other office in Commerce or an office in City of Industry, where you have very, very little office, very little retail, you just have to kind of build your particular shop a little bit differently than others. So we were able to, get a pretty quick start in 2004. We grew the office in 2004. We hired about 12 new brokers. for the Sherman Oaks office. We hired about 16 brokers and opened up Calabasas in late 2004, and then opened up Oxnard in 2006, as well as Palmdale, our Palmdale office. So, over the years, you find a lot of good people. You always say, boy, Lance, it'd be great one day if we could work together. And, when you get to that point in your career where, you have a chance to bring in really good people, and that's what we've been able to do. And so now today, we basically have all the food groups. We have our multifamily group, which does obviously apartment investments. We have retail, we have office, and we have industrial. And so we've been able to basically, provide services to all of our clients. And then that's been really important. And then probably one of the biggest things, Lance, that changed my career is in 1993, I bought my first home in Calabasas in early 93. And by April of 93, we had huge rains out in the obviously in Southern California. We had about 57 superficial slope failures in our development in Calabasas. And that development's over there pretty much where the Oaks is. That's where you have basically a lot of your stars, where Dustin Bieber and other people have had homes up there. And I was president of the Homeowners Association. We spent about 6 or 7 years in litigation with Southern California Edison, Bechtold, some grading contractors, and I was pretty active in the city. And then in late 93, I was appointed to the first planning commission for the city of Calabasas. And I served 5 terms there, so from 1993 to 2003. And that was a really great experience because I got to sit on the other side of the diocese to listen to applicants, industrial, retail, multifamily developers, come and present their cases to try to get a project approved. And that's really where I learned a lot. It's kind of where it was incredible education, and it was a great understanding of just how difficult it is for basically all of our clients. I don't care what you do, to go and buy a piece of land and try to get a project approved. And you really realize, it's not just sending over, a potential developer a piece of land that, boy, this land looks really nice and, you should buy it. You have to learn about everything, about setbacks and about, building heights and densities and all the different requirements environmentally that you need to comply with. And so that was really kind of my forte. So I started off as an industrial guy, and then I started getting into doing a lot of land deals. And because of the 10 years that I spent in the planning commission, I got to know a lot of the other cities, city of Gore Hills, city of Westlake Village, Thousand Oaks, Simi Valley, Los Angeles, Moore Park, and was instrumental in bringing a lot of really interesting projects to those cities. And then again, having the diverse group of brokers that we have, I was able to provide, if I needed somebody to do retail, I could bring in a retail broker. If it was a multifamily opportunity or a conversion, I could bring in our multifamily group. So that's kind of my background in a relatively large nutshell, but it's been a great ride, very interesting, and always opportunities. We're in that time again where obviously the residential market is really good. The industrial market is just, blazing hot. And now we're looking at, a lot of office buildings and a lot of retail buildings and hospitality buildings and, trying to figure out, okay, what is the second life or third life of these projects going to look like now going forward? So again, it will evolve, and I think we have some interesting times ahead for us.
Yeah, maybe we could talk about those times. So any predictions on where those two sectors go from here? Real estate obviously is becoming completely digitalized, right? Amazon is just a huge supplier of all that stuff. And then at the same time, just your standard brick and mortar folks, right? So our office buildings is what I should talk about. Is we've accelerated at an unprecedented rate of moving. So many things. I think over 60% of workers now are at least part-time, working remotely. So then that statistic, and a lot of it's going to stick. So where do you think those two kind of sectors are headed towards in their second and third lives? Are you seeing any kind of new opportunities? We have a housing shortage. Are there going to be those kind of conversions?
Well, it's interesting. I think it's a really, really exciting time out. It wouldn't be an exciting time necessarily if you own a lot of office product, but I think if you really think about where the market has gone, it's kind of pre-COVID. I bought maybe 5% of my stuff online. I'm a guy. Like to go and touch it, feel it, see it, buy it, support local retailers. That obviously has changed. So now I'm probably 80% buying our products online. So same thing kind of happened on the office side. When you look at what's happened since COVID, we shut down, I think, on March 13th of last year. Pretty much been working every single day since we shut down. We have 5, 6, 7 people in each office, that can come in. Some of my top producers have been working out of their homes and rarely coming in. And because of the digital revolution and the ability to basically conduct business remotely, you're definitely going to see a significant change there where, I'd probably say we're relocating. We're not relocating. We're redoing an office right now in Sherman Oaks, where we bought an office building over in Calabasas that we're moving to. We're probably going to use 20% less space. We've gone to hard offices versus an open landscape. Where you have basically your principals, your senior brokers are in private offices, and then your associates or your junior people are out in the cubicles in front and support staff, which is really kind of traditional. It goes back to kind of where we were, 20, 30 years ago. And I think that's going to continue to kind of be the norm. So I think the days of kind of the open co-sharing, those okay, but there's a place for that, but I think that there'll be a little shift from that. For your traditional companies. But, getting to your question regarding office buildings, really office buildings and retail buildings. So definitely office buildings you can look at. If you have a 2-story office building, you're going to be in good shape. If you've got a high rise, a little bit more of a challenge. I would say in the last, 9, 10, 12 months, we've actually done quite a few office deals. And it's basically users of space are looking for a key to their door. So if I can get a key to my door and I can have my restrooms and my lobby contained within my own space, that's a good thing. Because then they know they don't have a shared lobby, shared restrooms. They can kind of control the access to their building. And while COVID, was once in every 100 years, where we are in this world, who knows? Who knows if we have this happen again in 3 or 4 or 5 years? And so if you can kind of control your space, I think that's a good thing. So I think you will see anybody that has the ability to provide kind of individualized access to certain buildings. So your suburban markets will probably fare pretty well. Getting into some of the buildings over in West LA and downtown where you've got to go into a common lobby and up an elevator, that's challenging right now. And until we get this vaccine out and we get COVID really under control, it's going to be a slow access back. The other thing that's kind of interesting is that no different than a lot of these big old retail buildings that we saw where you had a Kmart or a Sears or a Macy's and these big, large anchor centers, you've already started to see some of those repurposed, like over in Northridge where they converted the Macy's, to creative office. I think you're going to continue to see areas where you have these large parking fields. There's no doubt that we're going to have these smart cars. We already have them. So I think the demand for the amount of parking that buildings have, where it's, 4, 5, 6 per thousand parking, I think you're going to see that decrease. And so I think there's going to be some opportunities to bring in multifamily closer to some of these business areas where you don't have, parking structures, but you have large parking fields. And so I think there will be some opportunities for redevelopment there. Very similar to what you're seeing in a lot of these large retail centers. You got a 20-acre retail center that used to have a Kmart and a lot of these other big boxes that now have shrunk their footprint down. And so in theory, you can look and say, I've got a 20-acre park that I've got, 200,000 square feet of retail, which only about 100,000 square feet is viable, which means there may be an opportunity for me to tear down 100,000 square feet of building, pick up 10 acres of land, and potentially create a reverse mixed use park. And you've seen that's been happening for probably the last 5 or 6 years across the country. So again, there's going to be definite opportunity out there. The real key is going to be is that, as long as you're not over highly leveraged, you're going to have a chance to basically, take advantage of some of these opportunities, because there's no doubt there's going to be a significant shift. In our market out here, I've stopped kind of going to the malls. I got Topanga on one side. I've got the Oaks on the other side. I don't really have any need to go to a mall. I don't need to go to Dick's Sporting Goods, pick up a pair of golf shoes anymore or a golf shirt. But I do need to go over to the, whether it's my cleaners or whether it's over to a computer shop to get my computer fixed. I'm finding myself and a lot of my neighbors have been supporting a lot more of the local retail. So it's kind of almost going back, 40 years ago to where we basically shopped on our boulevards. And so I'm hoping that does happen. And then I know in the Thousand Oaks, Westlake Village, Gore, Calabasas area, we've definitely seen a lot of the residents supporting the local retailers. Whether the restaurants can hang in there any longer is another story. But there's been some interesting things that have obviously evolved due to COVID.
Definitely. Are you guys seeing an increase in bankruptcies yet? Is anybody going south on there, or is it everybody somehow holding steady? And
yeah, unfortunately, I would say if there's anything that was kind of negative that happened early on, it was just when the mayor and the governor were talking about these not paying rent, no evictions. All of that stuff was really troublesome, and it's still a little confusing in the marketplace, because, I have tenants in buildings, and a lot of us, including myself, have asked for rent forgiveness, and not necessarily forgiveness, but basically rent deferral.
Yeah.
I've done it on all of our leases, one that I'm sitting in right now. So we basically said, hey, we took 8 months of half rent during the first part of COVID, and we pushed it off and added it to the end of our lease. And in some cases, so those 8 months of half rent, it was 4 months of full rent. So in some cases, I would go and give the landlord 8 months at the end of the lease. So that works. The difficulty is for a lot of these folks that are occupying buildings and apartments where they haven't been paying rent and they haven't been evicted, to go and ask, me as a renter, let's just say, hey, you don't have to pay rent, they can't evict you, but you're going to have to pay back that rent that you haven't paid over the next 12 months. Well, pretty hard to do if I don't have a job, and certainly I'm not going to be able to pay, additional monies to get out of my mess. So the difficulty in what's happened, and I talked to a lot of lenders, is that I haven't seen any foreclosures. I couldn't tell you of any foreclosure that happened in 2020. I don't think you're going to see many in the first quarter of 2021. Starting the second quarter of 2021, third quarter, fourth quarter, I think you're going to see a pretty significant increase. However, again, if the borrowers are good borrowers, the lenders are probably going to try to play ball with them, because, the economy was pumping pre-COVID. There's not any huge indicators. I've been through four recessions. Every time it's bad, the little guys, the manufacturers that make all the widgets that I still work with 1,500 foot users. When those folks start going bad, and you see manufacturing layoffs, and you see that market go, then usually things come undone. So the good news: industrial, manufacturing, smart people creating new widgets is continuing, and it's continuing all over Southern California, all over California for that matter. So I'm hopeful that we see a lot of banks doing workouts with borrowers to try to kind of extend what we're in, because I don't see this being like the last recession when we just had this financial collapse. This wasn't a financial collapse. I haven't seen anything financially break. There's obviously going to be some renegotiations of loans, modifications of loans, but we really haven't seen any foreclosures. I don't know of any foreclosure that's taken place in the North Los Angeles and Ventura County of any significance. So that's good. Because when that starts happening, then, people start getting in a panic, and then buyers sit on the sidelines, and then transactions slow down and product increases. But, we're entering, at least on the industrial side, we've never seen an industrial market with such low vacancies. And again, I think that's the driver, but definitely going to be your, fair share on the office, on the hospitality, fitness centers, and in retail, no doubt.
Do you think a part of that, the financial system not completely falling apart like it did last time? I mean, there was a panic effect. I think that's what you're basically describing, is that it's this domino effect that happens as soon as you start to see one, then people close their their money purse, and then they stop spending, they stop buying, and we sort of stop that. Do you think do people such as yourself or others, is this something that was learned from the 2008 recession, and then are we just applying it now and we're in better shape?
Well, lenders are not lending like they did back in 2000 to 2008. I mean, you could go get 80-90% loans on investments, and today you're lucky to get 60%. So, rule of thumb, I mean, debt's good and debt's bad, so you want to make sure you're somewhere not less than 40 and not more than 60% leveraged. And so a lot of lenders are just not lending the way that they did at one point. And, for the most part, they're scrutinizing the loans. They're looking at the loans from a standpoint of not just, back in, mid 2000s, we were projecting future rents and future sale values. And so you're being able to borrow on that. Today, it's basically you're looking at what is the current value, based on the sales approach, the income approach, or replacement approach. And so you've got a lot more conservativeness going on between the appraisers and the lenders. Mm-hmm. So I just don't think you have the same situation that we had back in 2008, 2009. So I don't think that will be the case. And again, financing is, money is really, really cheap. So a lot of these folks have been taking advantage of the SBA loans. We did when we bought our office building in Westlake Village, put you in a really good spot. I mean, it's sub 3% money, it's 25-year fixed money. So it's a pretty good spot. So I just don't see the volatility that I saw back in 08, 09, where, everybody thought they were, a real estate investor and developer, and just got in, they were just at the end of 2007, 2008. I mean, it was, everybody was trying to get into development. Money was readily available, and the smart guys did find, the people that were trying to play developer or investor got wiped out.
Yep.
I don't see that happening this time.
I agree. Yeah. I'm in 100% agreement with you. I was just in a discussion with one of my friends too. He was convinced that real estate is in big trouble. And I said, no, it's actually quite the opposite. So I'm glad. And I was speaking from more of a residential standpoint, but I'm really glad to hear some of the things you're saying about commercial as well. Yeah. I can't help but ask you, and I have to because you're in California, as somebody who's in California and has businesses there, a lot of money tied up, but you're, Elon Musk, he just went to Texas. You have all these other, folks that we see on Twitter or wherever that they're out of here. They're done, they're leaving for better tax havens like Texas and Tennessee and those kind of places. Can you speak a little bit about what you're seeing maybe on the ground there? What's real, what's not? And
yeah, I mean, it's in 2006, I opened an office in Boise, Idaho. And I opened an office there with my partner, Matt Mahoney, who came. He was an implant from San Diego. His wife's a professor at Boise State. And, I opened it up there because a lot of the people that I went to school with, a lot of people in real estate were looking at moving up there. One of the developers here locally, Michael Adler, has bought a bunch of, he's a big office guy. He bought he bought 88 industrial buildings up there and a bunch of land up there. So there's definitely been people moving, out of state. Will continue to move out of state. They've been doing it, kind of forever. It's no different than I've got a lot of clients that started off in Van Nuys and moved to Chatsworth, then to Simi Valley, then to Oxnard. So they moved from LA County to Ventura County. But there's no doubt. I mean, I've had, I think the last 3 investment deals that I've done have been out of state. So people have sold properties in California and moving it to, primarily it's either going to go to Arizona, Nevada, North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida. But money's definitely moving out. But at the same time, it's a beautiful day today, minus the wind from the last couple of weeks. I mean, it's, you've got this weather here. You've got incredible universities all around. You've got a lot of smart people. And even as companies, I mean, everybody was worried about Amgen about 7 years ago, 8 years ago when they started relocating to other spots. And, boy, it's going to kill the Conejo Valley out here. And at the end of the day, you got Westlake Biopartners. I think they've done almost $1 billion worth of new funding for new startup companies. There's all these smart people. Take an early retirement, you're 50 years old, you're going to go do something. And so there's a lot of new companies that have been started and created. And so despite, some larger companies moving out like Tesla and, that one Haas Automation is, building a big plant out in Henderson, Nevada. They'll remain here, but they're moving over there. There's a bunch of companies that have moved, so, I mean, you're going to continue to see that. Hopefully our government can look at ways to keep some of this manufacturing here and to make it a little more palatable to do business here. It's tough though. It is tough. And again, I've been right in, as close as you can get to your government when I was on that planning commission for 10 years. And, it took me about 6 years to help Tim Smith, that owns Bob Smith BMW, get his project approved in Calabasas. And that was a dealership that's bringing $500,000 worth of revenue to your city every year. And then we had, at that time, Kilroy was building a bunch of office buildings, and we didn't really want any office buildings. So we went out and we got Rick Caruso, and I convinced Rick to buy 20 acres of land, to do that. And that took him, 3 years to get done. And so, I'd say the entitlement side, the fee side, the regulation side, we're going to have to really look at that. Otherwise, we're going to continue to see a lot of smart people creating really good companies. And then when they grow up, they're going to relocate to places where they get treated a little bit better, both from a regulatory standpoint, an employment standpoint, your workers' comp. I mean, you name it, insurance. It's just a lot cheaper. And, but that's not to say that it's forever. I was just in Phoenix maybe 8 weeks ago on selling a property to a client, money coming out of California going to Phoenix. And my partner out there, Stein Koss, has been out there since 1988 working in, they just passed, I think, a Measure B where they put their state income tax went from 4.5% to 8.5%. So that's a big increase, all right, on a very conservative, historically conservative state. And same thing's kind of been happening if you go out to Austin. I've been to Austin quite a few times, and Austin's kind of having that. So, kind of be careful what you ask for, because I think, you could move, and then you could move and find out that that an area is changing, and, you could end up not quite getting the long-term benefit that you're looking for. So hoping that we see some smart people get into office and try to start making some changes that make it a little more palatable for businesses to not just start here, but to stay here.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't forget. I mean, people don't realize that when a big company like a Tesla moves out, I mean, hundreds, not hundreds, but could be hundreds of suppliers and people that touch that company in some way, shape, or form, advertising, providing different components, whatever it might be, paper, janitorial services. I mean, it's top to bottom. And so you're talking about a huge impact with what one company can have to an area or a community, So that's what hurts, To me, it hurts because it's like the top is fine, right? It's the middle and the bottom that just get wiped out. It's been happening obviously during COVID. If you look at, you've got your job, I've got my job, I'm going to be okay. But the guy that's, working 3 jobs and got a couple people living under one roof that are busting their humps for for our economy, they're the ones that really make the engine run, they're impacted the most.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, I hate to see, you look at a Tesla moving, yeah, it seems, oh boy, that's terrible. Tesla's moving out. But what about all these other people down below that can't move with them? And where do they find the replacement for the business that they were providing? That's the tough one.
Yeah, I mean, just like you, I would like to see California get its act together in terms of those things, streamlined regulations. I don't know if you're ever going to get repeals or anything like that. Better tax codes, more efficient. It's just a really gummed up system from our perspective on the outside looking in. I think you're kind of describing.
Yeah, well, it's gummed up when you get inside. The closer you get, the further you want to get away. That's the problem. It's really, it's really tough. It just when you get closer to it, you realize how tough it is to get projects done, and it doesn't need to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have to look at it. I mean, responsible development is good. You have to have responsible development for a community in order to continue the vibrancy of your city. I mean, all these cities require a relatively high level of service. Well, that high level of service doesn't happen unless, you provide the income sources, whether it's hotels, retail, auto dealerships, tax certain businesses at a rate to where it doesn't break their backs. That's really the only way you can do it without taxing somebody. And the problem when you tax somebody so heavily is that, you end up just basically creating a situation where we're all working and, you earn $1 and you're lucky to take home 50 cents. When we talk about, how much money we pay in taxes, but when you really look at it from your state income tax, your federal income tax, to just your every single, your daily sales tax you're paying. I mean, we're well over, we're probably close to 55, 60% at the end of the day. And that's tough. And so, if something doesn't give there, I just don't see how long-term you're going to be able to get a lot of young people to be able to stay here. I mean, when I got out of college, I was renting a fully furnished 1-bedroom apartment for $475 a month at Reseda Boulevard on the 101 freeway. Today that same apartment, $1,600. I'm still paying junior brokers that come in out of college $1,000 a month, for the first 6 to 12 months and trying to teach them. That's the same money I got paid in 1988. But I could afford that apartment. Yeah. And I could afford my $99 a month Volkswagen Jetta with my roll-up windows and velour seats. I mean, today you can't do that. So, and I got a lot of kids. I got 5 kids. I got 3 in college, 1 in the Navy. But my 3 in college, my one daughter's over at LMU. She's a senior, finishing up her senior year online. What are kids like that going to do? I mean, where are they going to go work? How can they go afford to pay, $3,600 a month in rent for a 1-bedroom apartment in Playa Vista? How do they create enough money to create a potential family and life and be able to buy a home?
I don't know either. Yeah, it's not sustainable long term, definitely, right? And we can't just cut taxes because then we've got all this debt to pay and we have to at least attempt to look like we're going to be able to pay it back, even though we physically can't. So yeah, it's a major problem. I'm sure we could talk for another whole hour about that. But I at least appreciate your perspective as an insider from California because it's just always unique to hear. One last question I like to ask everybody, and it'll put you on the spot here, but knowing what you know now, and if you could go back in time to when you first started in the commercial real estate sector, what is one piece of advice you would give yourself?
One piece of advice. Oh boy. You know what? I would have to say that, the one thing that I really enjoyed, I have the first 2 people that I cold called on October 17th of 1988. One is my best man in my wedding, best friend. And the next one, same day, is one of my best friends. And we live and play golf in the same area. And, I was told when I was pretty young in my career, I tried to make money and it didn't work so well. So I just tried to build relationships not just with clients, but with vendors and different people that provided different services that I didn't provide. And I'd have to say at the end of the day, looking back and you have financial success, but financial success is just one piece of life. Without those friendships and those colleagues that you've been able to spend the last 30, almost going on now 33 years with, that's made the ride, worthwhile. And we've all been young with no kids and getting a little older with kids and all the pains, that go through becoming a young man, young adult, new father, all the way to grandpa and kids in college. And, so just having that community is really important. So I would say that, do it all over again. I'd do the same thing. Would I like to make some changes? Yeah. But if I had to do it all over and it turned out the same, I would be very pleased because it's been a good ride. Done a lot of good, helped a lot of people, create some great companies, and that's all you can really ask for is try to see if you can touch as many people as you possibly can and make a difference. And despite what you think politically, there's lots and lots of good people out there, and lots of people in need. And that's what I just look at. I'm a trusted advisor. I'm trying to make, stuff happen. And however I can do it, I'll give 100% effort.
Yeah, I love it. That was a great answer, Mike. Thank you for that. Where can people find and follow you if they want to get in touch with you, anything real estate related?
Well, you can find me basically, I've got my website. I think it's Mike Tingus. What is my website? I have to even tell you. It's MikeTingus.com. You can find me on Instagram. Find me right here at my office in beautiful Calabasas at mtingus@lee-re.com. Call me anytime. I'm always available.
Awesome. Thanks for being on the show today, Mike. This is a great conversation.
Thank you, Lance. I appreciate it, bud. Really do. Have a great day.